Class is in session for the final time this week as it's time to hand out the grades for the Ohio State defense through the first 6 games of the season. The D linemen, the linebackers, the cornerbacks, and the safeties, they have performed well, some not so well. We're going to take some time to dissect and hand out grades for these positions today, right here on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, October 14th in the year 2022, and this episode of Locked On Buckeyes is brought to you by Sling TV. Sling has something for everyone, especially when it comes to college football coverage. With a massive lineup of games across the ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, and SEC, I can always catch the games I want on Sling. And now you can too. Check out Sling TV now to see the massive lineup of games they have all season long. Sling, the TV you love for a price you'll love. Try it today. We did it earlier this week where we discussed the handed out grades for the Ohio State positions on the offensive side of the ball. If you missed that episode, go back and check it out. It happened on Wednesday. And the man that joined me for that episode is back with me and with us once again today. It's Jeff Hunt of the Jeff Knowles Sports Podcast and also of the Off the Ball Network. Jeff, my guy, one side of the ball is down. This one is improved from a year ago, but there are some positions here, maybe one specifically, that hasn't done too hot so far this year.
Yeah, this is the main thing I reflected on. This is a lot easier than last year's grades, Jay. It was the defense last year was tough for us. We really it was a lot of tough love going around. So going back, watching looking at the stats. That's what I'll say. The knee jerk about this defense is the stats are staggering compared to last year. I know there's a difference between stats and eyeballs, but you still. The stats are fun. And the biggest one I came up with just to start this thing off, Buckeyes have allowed 75 first downs this year. Georgia has allowed 79. And in a comparable team that's fighting for a playoff berth, Tennessee Volunteers have allowed 116 first downs in 5 games. Like that just gives you an idea of like the Buckeyes are not letting offenses stay on the field this year. That was the thing that jumped out this week that I couldn't wait to tell you about.
No, they're not. You want to talk about the numbers, Jeff. Let's talk about averages per game, as that is one that is still mind-boggling and eye-popping to me. The Buckeyes defense is only giving up 1 passing touchdown per game. When you're blowing out teams, teams are going to have to pass the ball, and their other teams are only averaging 1 passing touchdown per game. That's astonishing. They're giving up less than 200 passing yards per game. Honestly, the number is 160.3. Yeah. They're averaging teams are only they're giving up less than 100 rushing yards per game. Less than 100. My mind's still blown by this. Giving up 93.2 yards per game on the ground. The team's only giving up. They're only allowing teams 253.5 yards per game. This is stupid, bro. Like all offseason, I heard Jim Knowles comes in. Year 1 under Jim Knowles, teams' defenses normally take a slow period to get acclimated to what Jim Knowles is doing, knowing he's probably going to a team that's a 4-down lineman set. Now, Jim Knowles wants to run basically around 3-3-5 with disguising a defensive end. Is he a DN? Is he a linebacker? What is he on this play? Didn't really miss a beat. Went even better. Went better than expected, better than advertised. There are players on Ohio State already that can be hand in a dirt D end or 2-point stance D end. They could be on the outside of 2-point stance, be on the inside of the 2-point stance. Like the things that I heard in the offseason about Jim Knowles and how this defense might not be as explosive as you might think it'll be under Jim Knowles. Wrong, buddy. This defense is crazy and good, and I can't wait to see what happens throughout the final 6 games of the regular season.
And it's so impressive too because the per game averages and the per play averages for Ohio State are astonishing. What I like about that is because let's not forget that we talked about a couple of days ago, Jay. the most explosive offense in the country, through 6 games. So that means, this team's scoring 6, 7, 8 times a game, which means the other team is getting 6, 7, 8, 9 possessions a game, and they still aren't getting anything done with it. Mostly until late in the game. Arkansas State kind of, did some wacky things in the first half. Credit to them. That was awesome. That's when you look at the stats, that was the best offensive game against the Buckeyes this year, which is crazy. When I went back and watched the Wisconsin game again, I'm like, devastating defense in that game against Wisconsin. But yeah, the averages are so impressive. The one that jumped out to me, another one, 57.2% completion.
Yeah.
What they're allowing, they've only allowed 60% once. 60% in college football is pretty low, which here's what it tells us. The quarterbacks are trying to throw the ball, and they're not being very successful. So that's another big thing. Just night and day from last year, no pun intended. Knowles and Day from last year. Can we? There. I'm going to trademark that right now. Knowles and Day difference.
I'm going to leave that right there, Jeff. Let's get right into it once again.
Let's do it.
Jeff, you are the guest. You're going first. Defensive linemen. We are tough graders. The other day, Jeff was a little bit tougher than me. We were on the same page for a couple positions. But Jeff, D lineman through 6 games. What is your grade for this unit?
And again, I'll say this off the bat. I grade everybody by how good, the possibilities are, not just how well they've played. So, you have to excuse me on that. I gave the D-line a solid B. The great things that they do, they're getting great push. They're making a great – they're not allowing gaps. We talk about not giving up the run. Mm-hmm. They're not giving up gaps. And that's a lot of Knowles. My one note was – this is a defense that pressures, not sacks right now, but it's working great. The tackles for losses are every week they're getting a little better. The sacks started to come around last week. All that stuff is coming. But what you don't see are these gaps that these running backs can, take 2 steps and sneak through, and then they bust it for 60 yards. We'll talk about the second, layer of the defense later. But so far it's pressure, not sacks. The pass coverage is helping. We'll talk some about that. But overall, I think there was a lot of potential in the D-line coming in, and they've done really well. We can talk about, Mr. Hall all night if we want to, how great he's done. You and Mo covered some great stuff on that. But overall, I gave him a solid B, and that's basically because they're not dismantling quarterbacks, but they are frustrating the the buggins out of them.
They are. Jeff, B for you. We're similar here with a grade for this unit. I'm going B+. I think that if it was simply just a run game grade, I might be able to give them an A because they have been phenomenal. We talk about how Eichenberg and Chambers have been phenomenal this year. They don't have the success they have in 2022 without the guys up front muddying things up, being gap responsible, being sound with discipline, setting the edge, which has been huge. Zach Harrison moving down to D-tackle at times has been big for the Buckeyes. If this was simply just a run grade, it's an A. I can say that right now. But you said it so well. When you talk about how there's one thing they struggle with, what is that thing? Getting to the quarterback. I mean, I can go look at the numbers right now. Jeff went over some numbers for the total defense as far as over the season. I want to go through some season totals for just simply sacks. Eichenberg has 2.5 sacks. Still Chambers has 1 sack. I'll add TFLs in there as well. Eichenberg has 6 tackles for loss. Still Chambers has 4. Mason has 1 TFL. Cody Simon has 2. But if you go down to sacks specifically, Mike Hall has 4.5. He's a defensive tackle. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is the backup defensive end. He has 2 sacks. Jack Sawyer has 2. Zach Harrison has 0. Tua Maloa has 0. Teron Vincent has 0. Tylik Williams has 0. I understand the pressure. I understand the desire to get to the quarterback. But, Jeff, there's a problem when the guys up front that are responsible for not only being responsible and sound in their gaps in the run game, but also responsible for getting to the quarterback. Now, granted, their test passes and things like that, like they do a good job of like collapsing the pocket. But great defenses get to the quarterback. Ohio State has a great defense right now. I believe it can be even better. How can it be better? Jeff, it's easy. Get to the quarterback, especially when these teams are being forced to pass a whole lot earlier in the game than they probably want to. Get to the quarterback. That's how this unit specifically can get better.
Yeah, and I agree. And a couple things that I've seen that are going to get better as once the competition, the games get a little bigger. I think that the calls will get a little better. The fact that I don't know what it is that the country has against JTT, but they will not call a hold on him. And
Oh
I'm
my
not sitting
gosh,
here.
it's
I'm not
it's
sitting here.
bad.
Yeah, you know me, Jay. I don't beg for penalties, but wow, the Michigan State game was horrible. Wisconsin. I mean, it is just constant. So he. You said the best. He's doing a great job on the edge, but man, he's not complaining. He's just doing his job. But if they start either calling that or he gets just a half a step farther, he might start train wrecking offenses. He's really done a good job for someone that when you look at the paper doesn't jump out. You watch it on film, like he is really bothering. So yeah, I think we said everything correct about this defensive line. And I think by the end of the year, we're talking about an A- or an A defensive line, because I believe my one note was like it's getting close. Like they're dialing in, they're getting closer. And now we got to talk about games that are out of hand too. So a quarterback's not gonna go down with the ship for no reason when he's down 38 points or something like that. So these quarterbacks are going to get rid of the ball. They're going to start dumping it off. When you start getting into games that matter more, and let's say it's a game where a team is trying to stay in it or they're ahead, whichever, now they got to hold on to the ball. Now that half a step, gets a little closer. So I think the last 4 to 5 games of the season, they start getting home. I really, really believe that.
Jeff, there's a thought, and I think Mike Hall, with how he plays, could actually accomplish his goal. Wisconsin game, 2019, Chase Young had four sacks in the game, but it's an Ohio State single game record. Do you see him getting that mark this year? Make the comment quick if you could, because we got to keep moving with the show.
I'll just say yes. I think he does. I'll say yes.
I want to say no, only because I think it's really, really, really hard at the interior D lineman to get there. But I'm going to just go there for that. Jeff, you're next up. Linebackers, where you at?
I went with B+, and mostly because there's basically only 2 of them on the field at all times. Eichenberg, I give him so much credit. He has made this engine work. Like everything that he has done and everything that he can do allows this defense to do what Knowles wants it to do. It's been so impressive. He's the most, outside of the obvious ones, he's the most important player of the season so far, unquestionably. And they're sure tackling. Chambers has done a great job turning himself into a linebacker. The players aren't slipping out of their grasp. They make big impact plays on these big third downs. They get everybody off the field. They haven't made a bunch of mistakes. You don't see missed tackles. If the ball gets thrown their way, they tend to be in the right spot, which is so different than what we've seen the last 2 to 3 years at Ohio State. So I'm giving them a lot of credit for just how much better they are. And the fact that there's only 2 of them out there and they're running the show. The depth is a little concern for me. Going down the road right now it feels like we're a 2 linebacker team. But I may not know who's going to be the next great linebacker, but as of right now, I think those 2 guys have really held it down out there.
If it was just the top 2 guys, I would give them an A. I think they have been phenomenal. I don't hand out A+, especially right now during the middle of the season. Maybe
Right
at the end, possibly at the end, but that's the only time. And even then, that's probably going to be a no-go for me. Jeff, I got to give him. I feel like I said, if it was just those 2 guys, Chambers, Eichenberg, they're doing what they're doing, and they're doing it in a phenomenal, quick way, disciplined. Some are saying that Tommy Eichenberg, still Chambers is playing his way to being a future linebacker that's drafted into the National Football League. I don't know. Like I said, I talked to my guy Ryan Roberts about that at the end of the year.
Yeah, he knows better than me.
Yeah, he does. He does. I don't know how he has the eye to watch the film and analyze the draft like he does and predict what he does in such a great way, but he's good at what he does. When you add in the depth issues, you add in once there's a not just one, like D lineman, there's a significant drop off between the top tier guys and the backups. There's a significant drop off between the top tier linebackers and the backups. So I got to go A- because the depth issues, which as you mentioned, which you may say, Jay, well, some guys they're new. Like there's a transfer linebacker from Arizona State. Okay, great, but still he's in this unit. I have to grade him as such. I'm going A-. I could probably go a little bit harsher. I could probably stick with an A because of how great Eichenberg has been. Yeah. One thing I've noticed from him is, Jeff, he reminds me, like when I look at him, I think of like a phone booth type of linebacker, tackle to tackle, inside the box, run game stopper, not really rangy. Once you get outside the hash marks, it's kind of in no man's land. He's on an island and he doesn't know how to navigate around that thing. No, he is very good at reading pre-snap, deciphering right after post-snap, and then going to where the ball is going to be. Eichenberg is good at that. Stowe Chambers is good at that. Their tackles in space as linebackers going sideline to sideline, they are things that we have not seen at Ohio State in quite a long time. I'm glad that Jim Knowles is using these guys in this way. I am going A-. Depth is one thing. The drop-off when the backups is one thing because you have to grade the entire unit, those that have played LV during this season. But I'm going A-, Jeff. I wanted to go a little bit better, wanted to be harsher, but I think A- right now for my mindset is pretty fair.
Yeah, and I can tell you this too. You know, you watch Alabama play too, and you watch Will Anderson go out there and do his job, and you're like, okay, like there's. I'm just saying, like as good as our linebackers have played, you're like, okay, that's maybe an A+, type of linebacker right there. Which that's no offense to our guys. Like I'm just. Like but that's why I can't go too high. Just like you're saying, you got to leave room. But they've done a great job. Defensive line has done a great job keeping them, keeping them out of the trash, so to speak. Those guys are able to do their job. Things are working really well for them.
Jeff, corners, your turn.
I went with a C. I hate to be harsh on them because there's a lot of things that say it hasn't gone. I won't say as bad, but it's not as negative as we think. But just what I've seen from the first game is just penalties, miscommunication, some lucky passes just haven't been close enough. They've got burnt on a couple. The Michigan State game was kind of exposed him a little. Not to pick on him, but Burke, who we thought was going to be the linchpin, the shutdown guy, has regressed a little. We don't know why. It's probably just a learning curve. By the time hopefully the playoffs come around, it's all fixed. Not that they're not talented, but we're also comparing them to these guys that are playing so well that we just talked about. So it's just a technique thing that I'm missing, but I understand they're young. They're learning the new system. It is a tough system for defensive backs. So it's basically just the penalties and the miscommunication and the kind of not knowing where the ball is. I gave him a C, but it could be turned around quickly.
It can be turned around quickly. This might be the one thing I was not expecting. Jeff, we gave this unit the same grade. I got a C.
Finally.
And this unit to me, you mentioned the Michigan State game. I also have to take into account they have a new coach this year. I believe it's Tim Walton is a cornerback coach, Perry Eliano, the safeties coach. I do believe I have that in the correct order. Mm-hmm. And it's weird because Jim Knowles is a new coach for the linebackers, and that unit is superb. So I don't know what I understand like technique, and also I've heard, was it Bobby Carpenter or Tyvis Powell recently on a show? They were talking about how one of the hardest things to do is to run with the man, stay at his hip, turn your head, locate the ball, and in a split second know how to defend it. If your arm goes the wrong way or not high enough or too high, the ball is going into the receiver's hands, and you could be on a highlight. Like they even acknowledged how difficult that task is on the football field. And I don't want to say that it's not hard, but I also understand locating the football is what these guys came to Ohio State to do.
Right.
And so if it was just a Denzel Burke thing, I might have a higher grade. But then it's your two top corners. Cam Brown now granted, he missed a game because of injuries, but when Cam Brown came back on, Jayden Reed's a good receiver. Don't get me wrong. But I was out there thinking, like, man, is he like Jahan Dotson? Like, is he a Penn State guy? Is he and Jahan Dotson, I think, a better receiver than Jayden Reed. But he was making catches like Jahan Dotson did against Sean Wade. So I'm like, what is going? I think it was the 2020 season. I'm like, what is going on? And then you had Jair Brown, a true freshman. And then you had J.K. Johnson. I'm like, okay, these guys are struggling with something that's really, really hard.
Yeah.
But at Ohio State, those issues are magnified because you're a Buckeye. So I'm going with the C. I believe they can get better. And I believe, Jeff, they will get better. Penn State game, I believe that they're going to bring their A game. It's in Happy Valley. It's probably going to be a big noon game. It's a 12 o'clock game. I believe the Buckeyes will play phenomenal football in the 12 o'clock window that day, Halloween weekend. So I'm going with the C, but I do think at the end of the year, I could ratchet that up to a C plus, maybe a B minus. I'm not even saying they have to get interceptions, Jeff. I don't think that has to happen.
Yeah.
But find ways to disrupt routes at the start and then also knock the ball away. If they don't have 5-6 more interceptions at the end of the season, this unit alone, I wouldn't get mad because, once again, the guys on the outside can't get open, and I would really gladly take that every day of the week.
And real quick, that's another group that once they start calling it more fair, as far as from the ref standpoint, there was some penalties early on in the season that aren't penalties in later on. So you don't want to lose that physicality that like Burke had, which I do think some of the tentativeness is because of penalties that he's been saddled with early in the season. Those tend to go away when things get nasty. So this team, they will get better. I 100% believe that.
Jeff, one more unit. This unit to me is one of those that if it was just 3 guys, my grade would be lower. But there's a 4th guy that's played a lot of minutes, a lot of time, a lot of snaps this year that raised the grade of this unit by 1 notch. Where you at with the safeties at Ohio State?
Hey, these are my dudes, man. I gave them a B plus, and the only reasons because I think a B plus is really good. Lack of interceptions is really the only negative thing. I know there's more to it than that, but it's just there hadn't been a lot of game changing interceptions. Last week was a great one by Ransom, and that really ended that game. Ransom's interception ended that game. That's all they needed. But very good technique, very good positioning. They've covered up the one thing I know. They've covered a lot of the cornerback mistakes. If we're being honest, I think it was the Wisconsin game specifically. McAllister really was there, for his guys a lot. Being so rangy. Just overall, it's my favorite group. They tackle well. They cover really well. They seem to be in the right spot. Like I said, probably the only negative so far. They're not super big physical guys, which that's fine. They don't have to be, but they're not a guy that like. They might have a tough time covering some of the bigger receivers, or especially like, let's say a team like Georgia. We'll just throw them out there with some of their size, with Bowers and stuff. Like some of those matchups might get a little iffy. But as far as their range and speed, and apparently their smarts, like they're all over the field.
Yeah, man.
I love what they're doing. It's the key to Knowles' defense. Everything you read about it, the safeties are important. I gave them a B plus rising. These guys have done a great job this year, and it's a blast to watch them play.
It's a blast. Jeff, you went B plus. I go 1 notch ahead of you with an A minus. It's really been raised by the play of Lathan Ransom. I remember last year he was one of those guys. People were saying, "Put him on the field. Put him on the field." I'm saying, "Wait, how about you find out who the best guys are and then put them on the field?" The coaches didn't know who the best guys were, so they just put everybody on the field. And we were on the show saying, "Tighten down the rotation." They're like, "No, we're not going to." And we got what we got last year on the football field. But there's another story with Lathan Ransom, which I think has raised the play of Hickman, McAllister, and Proctor. He broke his leg in the Rose Bowl. He broke his leg on January 1st in the Rose Bowl. They said all offseason he has done everything proper with his rehab, with the medical staff, his nutrition, in the weight room, getting back in shape. And he does not look like a player that broke his leg in January. He's played in every game, Notre Dame game, Labor Day weekend. Proctor missed a tackle. Proctor got benched. Ransom came in, and Lathan Ransom was phenomenal. Proctor, to me, has been a stable piece and not a cancer when I am a senior. I'm one of the older guys, been around a while. I thought coming into the season, this is going to be my year. Lathan Ransom's good. He has not been a cancer in the locker room when he has been pulled from games, not played some games as much as he had thought he was going to. He has been a leader in the type of leader Ohio State needs, which is also another reason why I give them an A minus, because I do understand it's very difficult being a player that's older, got a new coach, and all of a sudden they're saying, "Hey, man, you're out." What I do? Miss the tackle. Bro, miss tackle. It's football. I want to miss a tackle. I'm not perfect. Yeah, but this guy back here, we think he's been working, and we're going to put him on the field right now. Next thing you know, Lathan Ransom, against Notre Dame, did not come back off the field. A minus for this unit. Lathan Ransom raised the grade for them because they legitimately don't have 3 starters. Jeff, they got 4. That's huge, man.
And I tell you another thing, you brought up Proctor. That's another guy that, like, down the road, like, we're going to see him at that whatever, that extra linebacker position or whatever. Like, there's going to be more time and more physical games, and when you're going to need to lean on some of the veterans like that, he's going to play. I'm crazy. I thought we wouldn't be able to keep Stokes off the field, and like as talented as he was, but these guys are playing so well. I mean, they really, and then you can talk about styles. Like, I mean, this kid's supposed to be in high school. I mean, they're 6 deep at safety. Like, it's unbelievable,
I forgot about Study Styles, man. Forgive me for that, guys.
yeah, that's exactly right. And all these guys are going to have an impact, throughout the season. It's a great luxury to have. Great, we'll just call them defensive backs, because in this defense, like they might be anywhere on the field. So it's been my favorite group. I've loved it. Eichenberg's been the big surprise, but these safeties, that's my dudes. I love watching them play. It's awesome, and they look like they're having fun out there. They really do.
What is your prediction for the second half of the season for the Buckeyes? I know the goal, national championship, beat the team up north, win the Big Ten championship. I understand their goals, but what's your prediction for this team throughout the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think the offense will start to take a step back. Defenses are going to get better. Defense is going to, I won't even say take a step back, but they're going to get tested more. They're going to start, they'll give up some plays. That's just how it's going to be. You're going to play good teams. You're going to give up some plays, but I really think they're going to get better. I think they're honestly, I think they get a little better every week. And I think you're going to start seeing some games to where like the Penn State game's a good one. Like, if you tell me they sacked Clifford 3 times, I think I would believe you. Everything we just said about him. So I honestly think by the end of the season, the point differential may not be as great as it is now just because of competition, but I think this is going to be closer to like kind of like the 2019 version. Like, there at the end in that Clemson game, like they had kind of both sides clicking, and we all know what happened, but I think it's going to be more like that. It's not a one-sided team like we'll say 2020 or something like that. I believe in this defense, and it looks like all the young guys get better every week, and that's all I need to see. That's all I need to see. I think as of now, I got him in my rankings. I got him at number 1. I don't see anything to argue with that right now, even though it's not a guarantee, but I feel like the Buckeyes have earned being in the neighborhood of the best team in the country.
I'm with you. I believe they've earned the right to be in the neighborhood of that. I watched a lot of the end, fourth quarter of the Alabama and A&M game. I was not impressed. I don't care if Bryce Young was not on the field. That there was a lot of other players that were on the field consistently that played in that game, and I was not impressed. I've been impressed with Ohio State every game this year. I have been impressed with the Buckeye defense every game this year.
Yeah.
And my prediction for them is that they have kind of, we have the Heisman moment. People say the Heisman. I go back. I don't know why this moment comes into my mind. Baylor RG3 he threw the pass to the touchdown pass on the run, going to his right, won the Heisman that year. And I remember I was like, okay, great. Like he's amazing. But there's Heisman moments for a lot of people. And I think if there's a Heisman moment or a game for a defense, I literally think it's Ohio State's defense against Penn State.
Yeah.
Because if they could shut down Nicholas Singleton and they can figure out a way to slow down Sean Clifford, he's not the best quarterback, but he's winning a lot of games this year.
Yeah.
Got to give him credit. If they find ways to make a statement in that game, that's one of those games. They'll shake up and wake up the nation. We're saying Ohio State has an elite offense. They also have an elite defense. We'll give them credit here on Lots of Buckeyes, Jeff, you and I, about how good this defense is. I think the rest of the country is still waking up to how good the defense is. I think that Penn State game, Jeff, Halloween weekend, is one of those games that will be one of those statement games for the Buckeyes in 2022.
Yeah, that's the thing about this defense. Like I'm not saying that. Like, I keep saying they play good quarterback. We'll find out. They've had a favorable schedule so far. Most of the country has, honestly. Like, it's just been a weird season. Everything's backloaded. But all I can say is right now, defense travels. You know what I mean? It's not luck. They're not lucking into anything. A lot of people bring up USC. People keep telling me they luck into these turnovers. Well, that's still a turnover. But Ohio State's just, again, they get the team off the field. And then they go score. There's just so little tape on the number 1 defense because they go 3 and out for the first half and then the game's over. Yeah. So they've done everything we've asked them to do. I'm not going to sit here and nitpick right now. Come back in a couple weeks and we'll see.
Jeff, the grades for the offense and the defense quickly. I'll turn it over to you to let everyone know they can follow you on Twitter and your shows as well. Grades for the offense from earlier in the week. I gave an A for the quarterbacks, A- for running backs, A for receivers, B+ for tight ends, and A for the linemen, offensive linemen. Jeff Hunt gave the quarterbacks an A-, running backs a B-, wide receivers an A, tight ends a B-, O linemen an A as well. For the defense, I gave the D lineman a B+ through 6 games, linebackers A-, corners a C, safeties an A-. Jeff Hunt gave the D lineman a B, linebackers a B+, corners a C, and safeties a B+. Those are our grades. What are yours? Drop them in the comment section below. We might have a little conversation off air with what you think. Jeff Hunt, where can people find you on the socials, and where can they follow and listen to your shows?
Hey, thanks, buddy. Yeah, you can find me at Twitter at jhunt006. You can find my podcast at Jeff Needs Sports Podcast, and I do my episodes every week about the Buckeyes. It's called the Buckeye Remix, where I take off the analyst cap, and as a fan, I go back and look at the game, and we kind of talk about what was fun, what was right, what was wrong, complain a little bit, a lot of nitpicks. Just kind of a fan-to-fan show that I like to do so much. And then, of course, the Off the Ball Network, I do a lot of guest spots, and we're doing a ton of stuff over there. And if you're an NBA fan, that's ramping up quickly, and all the writers and our podcasters over there, that's getting big. So it's a lot of fun right now. It's good to be a Buckeye fan. It's good to be a sports fan in general right now.
It sure is, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. I'm on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's the same handle there as well, at jstevens07. Might just put clips from this show and the J Stevens podcast on there weekly to give you more of an insight into what's going on here. If you're an audio listener, want to get a shortened version of the video, go to the TikTok. We're going to have some good old fun over there. And Jeff Roddy here for the day. College football weekend, Alabama, Tennessee on Saturday. I hope you're watching that. Hope you enjoy the bye week or off week, whatever you want to call it. Buckeyes will be back in action a week from tomorrow against Iowa. That bad offense. I can't wait. Jeff, the show's over. We got to do our thing once again. Buckeye fans love it. OH?
IO, baby.